one of my favorite bumper songs from this little program, MCH program that I got. But anyway, one of my favorite bumper songs. It's in almost all of my action audio theater soundtracks. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Party Like a Writer Half-World Tour 2023 Blackjack Kerouac Magical Literary Mystery Tour. I'm your host, Raymond F. Quinton, and last week was the first episode, and it was a lot of fun, and I got a lot of great feedback from the program. And as I promised, the program will keep getting better and better and better as I learn. And part of this process and part of what you're going through with me is that learning process, learning the technology, learning about myself, learning about the world around me, learning about who I am and who you are, and sharing that with you so that you can then henceforth take this knowledge, go forward, pay it forward, share it, bring people along, and inevitably make the world a better place. Now, some of the feedback that I got from the last program, in our audience is some strangers, friends, family, people I've known for a long time, people that I've known for a short period of time. But the consensus was a lot of people, sent me emails and said, great job, a lot of fun, very interesting, thank you. And then some people said, what the hell is that thing on your upper lip? And so, I've answered some of those emails, and I, sort of very succinctly said, something crawled out of our compost bin, implanted itself on my upper lip, and began to suck on my upper lip. And so I didn't quite know what I was going to do about that. So I decided to make it part of my life. And in any case, truth be told, it is my winter mustache. Because I believe it's important that we sort of, own who we are and what we look like and what we wear and all of these things, and have fun with it and be creative about it and just do whatever you feel like, needs to be done at the time. So I feel sometimes in winter that I need to look like a musketeer, or like some of those sort of Spanish, sort of classical paintings, the person with the mustache and the goatee. And so that's part of my character for right now. And then some people ask, well, what are those things sticking out of your hat? And it's my hair. It's my real hair. And I decided about 10 years ago to stop cutting it. And so if you stop cutting your hair, then you have to decide what you're going to do. And I am not Rapunzel. And so I decided that I was going to go to the secondhand stores and find earrings and, sort of decorate my hair. And sort of, again, my hair becomes part of myself. My family is from Jamaica, but I am not a Rastafarian, so to speak. But, I think it looks pretty cool. And then I have these beanies, these wool beanies, my hippie hats. And so this all becomes part of, sort of my character, who I am. And so, at any rate, with every episode, you'll learn a little bit more about me, who I am, and what I am trying to achieve here. And so let's segue to what I am trying to achieve here with the Party Like a Writer Half-World Tour. As I said in the last episode, I am a writer. Hold on one second. I am a writer. And, sorry, I just noticed that I was not recording. So as I did in my last episode, I will... Let's see if we're recording now. Okay, very good. As I did with my last episode, the first, 3 minutes was audio through the video recorder. And I am going to upload a sound file right about now. So you'll actually get the sound through the episode. There's technological stuff, again, that I'll share with you as we do these episodes. But, so, where was I? So, anyway, I want to sort of segue. This is my intro to the Party Like a Writer Half-World Tour. The next segment will be video log recordings that I made during my 6,000-mile Blackjack Kerouac magical literary mystery tour. Black man in a van, and you'll hear approximately 15 to 20 minute segments, and then I'll end the episode with a montage of scenes from the tour, and then also feature music that we produce. My radio station is Neighborhood News Radio. Just do a search for Neighborhood News Radio and you will find blogs. You'll find our radio station. You'll find a direct link to our radio station at our website, nnrpdx.com or neighborhoodnewsradio.com. And you'll also see a lot of the other stuff that we're doing. So, essentially, what I said in the beginning, with this short time that we're allotted here on Earth, we have an opportunity to sort of dive within ourselves to find out who we are, and find the creative essence within ourselves, and find what I call our creative genes. And there are many. And those are the things that I write about in my memoir books. Now, Party Like a Writer Tour celebrates my second memoir book. I think I have a copy of it here. The Writing Storm, Book 2, TOO. There's a picture of my desk on the cover. Book 1, Writing by the Seat of My Pants. And of course there's my desk again. That's kind of the design theme. There's the back of the book. There's me as a young author in San Francisco. There's me as a young pianist in Denver. And so this is book 2. There are 3 books all told that I'll be writing. I wanted to create a literary trifecta. And so let me just sort of dive into I've got, I have a whiteboard here, and so I've got my notes, but again, as I've said in the last episode, the creative mind is a chaotic place. And so our task as writers is not only to make order, find order, create order in the world, but our task is to find and make and create order within our own brains. And so I have a whiteboard. So I wanted to talk very briefly about the role of the writer. As I mentioned, I've written 2 books. I've written 12 books altogether, covering all sorts of things, covering every subject matter that I thought was important to me, including a relationship handbook. And so you can go on Amazon, just search for Raymond Quinton, Amazon, and you'll see 10 of my books. But for right now, again, I tend to talk and talk and talk and talk. And so let me digress for a minute here and just say that I think that's not one of the things people really like about me. But the interesting thing is, I don't really talk that much when I'm with my friends and when I'm with other people. It is, again, one of my approaches to being a writer and one of my approaches to the world. So I had to sort of think and do a deep dive and say, why does anybody want to be around me? And again, that's a question you might ask yourself tonight, before you go to sleep. And one of the things I figured out is that I've figured out the key to everlasting friendship. And what is that key? Well, let me tell you. First is to be a fantastic listener. That means that there should be pauses or quiet moments in every conversation that you have. That means you stop talking for a few minutes and you listen. The greatest, most valuable tool that you have to survive and navigate this crazy ass life that we have been granted is your ears. Mine are covered up. Let me get my headphones in there. And then after you finish listening, there are two of the most important questions that you can ask. That will open up the keys to the universe for you. And one of those questions is, and how did that make you feel? And then you listen, and you listen, and you listen. And the second question is, so what would you have done differently? And then you listen, and you listen, and you listen. And then guess what you ask next? And how did that make you feel? And they go, oh, the weight of the world sort of like, relaxes to whoever you're talking to. Now, it does help that I'm a trained journalist. I have a degree in journalism and mass communications, and I've been a publisher for, 30 of the 40 years of my career. I published 10 or so newspapers and magazines, and typically I wrote every article. Typically I did all the design. Typically I did all the production, the design production, and typically I did all the distribution until I could afford to pay others to do it for me. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, some of my publications, I got to that point, especially with the lunch times, where I had two teams, one in Portland and Seattle, restaurant guides, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in another episode. So anyway, I'm digressing again, and the creative mind is a chaotic place. So the party like a writer concept is a chance for me to do these little avant-garde videos, to have a lot of fun with it, to share what I know, to talk about my books. Again, they're all available at Amazon. Raymond Quinton at Amazon. You'll see my profile, and you'll also find every book that I publish. And then to talk about writers in general, and then to talk about journalism in general, because again, journalism has been my career, and journalism is in chaos right now. The journalism industry is in chaos right now, and I have some ideas, which I talk a lot in my video logs. But for this intro, I'm not going to go into much detail about that because that's way. So the idea is to do 64 episodes. I'm 64 years old. And again, that concept of as you get older is not a time to stop doing what you do, but a time to, in some cases, accelerate. In some cases, to advance. In some cases, to refine and do what you've been doing and do it better. But every day, as I say, is a new opportunity, as opposed to every day is a day to, look forward to dying, and especially when we get to be at our age. And so, again, the message is, now's the best time. Okay, so what does my little whiteboard say? So the party like a writer concept. I want to talk about writers. I do talk a lot about writers. And again, my books are not about writing, because writing is not a new art form. Writing has been around for hundreds of years. Writing is something that almost everybody does these days. Okay? But understanding writing and understanding the responsibility on any influence, the impact of writing in our society, and the importance of writers. And, writers, as opposed to journalists, they're one and the same. However, journalism is a style. Journalists are writers. But then, journalists are, all writers are writers. Now, if you happen to have
the ability to write really, really well, then these times are the most important times for you. Because what we have now not only is what I call intellectual devolution. We have a writing devolution that's happening right now. What we have is sort of like regressive intellectualism that's occurring all around us. You'll see it. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And we have a society that's sped up so fast that it's sped up beyond its ability to comprehend. And so as writers, we have a responsibility right now to sort of try to push the pendulum the other way. Writing is so essential and important in our society that we have to there has to be those of us to first acknowledge the value of it, and then not only acknowledge the value of it, but to acknowledge the importance of inclusion of every member of the society in that process and in that art. What has happened, especially in American society, is that writing, publishing, media, journalism, sort of evolved without the participation of I'd say a third of our society. People of color, black and brown people, LGBTQ. It has never really been an advocate for a huge segment of our society. And that's the part that we have to change right now, because if we include everyone, we include you. We include everybody. We include everybody around us. It's not an exclusive art, which a lot of people think it is. A lot of people look at writing and they say, oh, well, if you're really good at it, it's high art. And, I think back about my ex-father-in-law, Bob. We would have long conversations because he was incredibly well-read and incredibly learned, and he was a huge Louis L'Amour fan. And so he said, well, it was not necessarily high art, but he loved it. And so, sort of thinking forward about writing and its role in society, our goal should not necessarily be high art. It should not be to be the best at everything, and that if you create it and produce it, it has to be perfect. I look at all my books. All my books are not perfect. They have typos. Some of them have a lot. My novel, which is 600 pages, called A Pitch and Crime. It was 600 pages, right? I wrote it on a tiny M101, pad, was it iPad thing that they had in the 90s during my lunch breaks while I was national marketing director for Hollywood Video. And ultimately, I'd go home, I'd plug it in, they would download, and then I had to edit that fucker. And it was 600 pages. So now here's the cool thing. Finally got it done, got it published. And again, I had no outlines, I had nothing. I just wrote it straight because I started with outlines and I said, okay, no, this is a great story. I just need to get this story out. And so I sort of burned all the outlines and I threw them in the recycling bin. I said, no, I'm going to write this thing, this story. I love this story. And so I'm going to get it done. I'm going to edit it, and then I'm going to publish this thing. Now, people, when you read my books, oh, hold on a second. Okay, sorry, my phone. I have to put it on like D&D. So when you look at, sort of the incredible effort that went into getting a novel written, getting it done. If you have a manuscript and you got it done, that's a massive achievement. 90% of the people who have ideas and want to put it into book form never, ever get there, right? And so I got it done, and then check this out. So I have another book. Oh, oops. I should not have touched that one, but that's okay, because again, we're not perfection. Called Best Ride Ever, Castle Tour. And my wife and I spent 3 months in Europe riding our bicycles to castles. And it's a children's book. It's advanced reading, but it's an awesome book. So then I took the printed version, proof of the book, and I edited it along the way. And then I had all of our friends sign it. So I have the signed autograph version of all of our friends in Europe. And then I came home, I did those edits, and I published it, and I said, I'm done. Right? I've moved on. I have moved on. So it's published on Amazon. If somebody, I even put in the description, there's typos. Right? The story is freaking great. If you want this knowledge, if you want these ideas, if you want this story, then it is your responsibility to put all that bullshit perfection stuff aside and read the goddamn story, right? Instead of looking at every piece of art and everything and all this and every piece of writing and saying it has to be perfect in order for me to accept this knowledge. And that's part of the problem that we face right now in our society. And I have a bad attitude. I told you that in the last episode. I have a bad attitude, so I do not accept that. So if there are imperfections in my books, even in my thinking, my knowledge, then you know what? I'm still going to put it out there. So, as writers, we have to pull ourselves out of ourselves and say what we're doing is good for society. If you have these genius genes, which I write about in my books, within yourself, I believe you have an obligation to, any way you can, present those to the world so that then they can either accept them, reject them, and or put them to use. Because, if you don't do that, I think, again, not to use graphic, they become trapped within you. Those people that have written books and those people that have written manuscripts or screenplays or whatever, and they put them in their drawers or in their closet or in a box somewhere, they're not doing the good that they could have been intended to do. So I say, any way you can, figure out a way to share that knowledge, that skill and that knowledge with society to help move society along. Because if everybody that wrote, everybody that's had a good idea, or everybody that had a thought or a story to tell said, nope, this is so good, I can't share it with anybody. If everybody said that, then society would have ceased to evolve. It would have ceased to progress. And the final part of that equation is that society evolved around art. Art could not have evolved and moved forward without writing. We have to take this simple, sort of sociological math and these simple equations and apply them to our everyday lives. And that includes in our personal relationships. That includes in our business relationships. And that includes in even relationships we do not have. Today, we are fortunate to have so many ways for writers and artists to get their work out there and move society along. Now, again, I'm going to qualify that. It's not necessarily ways to make money. And so, with that said, I am a professional bus and truck driver, right? And so I make money as a truck driver, and I make pretty good money. So, but I am also, I believe, one of the best bus and truck drivers there is, because I made it a point to not just be a bus driver, but to be an expert bus driver, to be a gentleman bus driver, or gentlewoman, or gentle person, gentle lady, whatever you want to call yourself. I don't want to spend all day writing. And part of that is because writing's not real work. Now, again, some people may disagree with me on that, but I can unequivocally say writing is not real work. I mean, say you're in a bar and you're in England, throwing down a few pints, and you walk up to a bloke and he says, "Well, what do you do? What do you do for work? what do you do for work, mate? And you say, well, I'm a writer. You say, oh, so that's not right now, is it? Oi, mate, go and grab that sack of potatoes, take it over there, set it down. So now you're doing some real work now, aren't you? So, at any rate, it's not hard work. A lot of people don't consider it work. And it's in some ways there's this sort of fantasy about, you know, sort of what the ultimate writer is. There's this fantasy, you know, about, you know, okay, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to be a novelist, I'm going to buy a house, you know, in the San Juan Islands, and, you know, I'm going to go there and write for, you know, for, you know, 8 hours a day. You know, I can tell you right now, writers don't do that. And if they do it, they get so freaking bored with it that they have to go out and do something else. But again, I was on the board of directors for the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, and so I was involved in their big national writers conference. And again, I'm a studier of people, and so when the event, anyway, in our board meetings, people were talking about the writer. Who's the writer? And again, stereotypically, the writer is not a black person. A writer doesn't look like me. A writer is, you know, sort of a middle-aged white person, you know, who has a really nice house and is, you know, sort of, you know, writing their novel. They're going to finish their novel and they're going to go to these conferences and they're going to get a book deal. That's all great. It does happen. I'm just saying for the majority of us, and this is what I said to them, no. Most writers, they don't necessarily care whether they get a big deal or not. They write because they're compelled to write. They write because these stories have to come out. And so, and then there's writers who are looking for, you know, a book deal. And then there's writers on Amazon who, again, they're like me. They're saying, I'm going to publish this damn thing. I don't care. I don't really care. But then they get discouraged because there's 100 million writers on Amazon, and so it just sits there and sits there and sits there. And so this Party Like a Writer Half-World Tour event is targeted at those people who are those writers, and many of them are professionals at other things, right? They're like me. And so they're trying to figure out what to do now that their writing is done. You know, it's like, you know, Earth, Wind, and Fire. After the love is gone. Oh, anyway. All right. So, and then those people who have all this creativity within themselves, and they're figuring out a way to apply it to the world. So let me tell you how I apply it, and then I'm going to end this segment, this intro. So I'm a professional driver, and and this is deliberate, I've found the best driving job probably in the world. I work for the college here. I have a retirement and all that other stuff. All right. It's a great job. Love it. And I get paid to basically think all day. Yeah, okay. So, you know, I could have been a philosopher, or I could go work for a think tank. But you know what? But this keeps that part of my brain occupied, the mechanical part of my brain, that genius part of my brain that needs to be occupied. And then when I get home, then there are multiple other parts of my brain that need to be occupied. This Party Like a Writer tour is sort of my opportunity to share how I have managed to translate that need into various creative projects. So, let me just describe the components. So, during the pandemic, I created Neighborhood News Radio, neighborhoodnewsradio.com, nnrpdx.com. And without going into my past history again, I began to produce music. Now, I am a satirist. That is an important distinction in the writing that I do that I have identified, but I can write anything. And so that is an acquired skill. So I'm a satirist. That is what I am meant to do to move society along and contribute to this world for which we live in. So I created Neighborhood News Radio. I began producing satirical music because I am a pianist. And then I also created a radio station. So I broadcast 24/7. Again, a link is at our website. And I began doing what I call action audio theater. So I wrote the scripts and I produced these plays. And yes, I have an entourage. And I'm not going to say whether I'm a one-man show or not, but I have an entourage. All right? And so I have a team that works with me. I've been producing for the last 3 years. And so I began producing music because I'm totally into funk. I'm a funk DJ. I did that for a year at a local nightclub. And I love the old school funk, Parliament, you know what I'm saying? Alphabet City, check that out. So I, one of my entourage and proteges is DJ Franklin, 20-something DJ Franklin. And so produced a lot of great music. And the latest is the Red Chip Funk. Which I'll feature at the end of the show. And so then the last part of it is, and then I've written books. Now again, I write and produce children's books. So the latest this year on the Party Like a Writer tour, I featured my latest children's book. A crazy idea that I had that the kids just love. I have 3 children's books, and I read to children in the park during the summer lunch program, and it is banana pizza, and it is crazy, but the kids love it, right? Because I actually, as a writer, I want to feed the minds of young kids, and I want them to see that and there's the best ride ever, Oaks Park. Oaks Park is crazy. I want to be visible, as a Black American, first generation American. I want to be visible to young kids and show them that that we as their elders are there for them. And so for 4 years I went to the park and I would read my children's books to the kids, and I have lots of toys and lots of crazy stuff, and I'm actually producing a documentary about it right now, which I will probably announce in our next show, to reach them when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, to show them that just to tell them for a few minutes that you're valued, you are loved. And I, as a grown-up author, took my time out to come here and get on my knees in front of them with all my toys and let them play with my stuff, and you can yell as loud as you want, that you have value and you are loved. And these are my books, and I wrote them for you, and let me tell you, they treat me like a rock star. It's great. Okay, all right, so anyway, so that's another thing that I do. And then this Party Like a Writer concept, it sort of culminates all of those things together so I can do my music. You know what I'm saying? I created a cheesy PowerPoint because I'm also a master at the PowerPoint and Excel and all those things I had to learn to be a marketing manager and to run my businesses and things of that nature. I mean, I know, again. So and so now I have to learn how to edit videos. I've learned how to produce music, and now I have to learn how to edit videos and apply that towards these events. And it's great. I am loving it. I'm learning a lot of stuff, but I have to learn really fast. And I'm trying to learn German. I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, I'm sort of pushing my brain. So with these Party Like a Writer, I am going to do some readings at some point because there's some great stuff in these books. Okay, and I'm working on book 3. But the concept of finding your genius genes, it's my concept. Because I don't need anybody to give me concepts, right? I have enough concepts, to last a lifetime, and enough concepts for me to deal with. And so I, again, as a thinker, innovator, intellectual innovator, these books are filled with my stories and my ideas. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm prodigious liar, and so there's some fiction in here, but there's some great stories, and I explore a lot of different styles. And then there are some really heartfelt stories that are really close to me, including the final story in book 1 about my good friend Calvin Ransom. Calvin and I went to college together. We were roommates when I was 18. And let's see. I wrote when I heard he passed away, I wrote a chapter for him in the back of the book. I added it. And it's called Jigaboos, Big Bands, and Gangster Parties, Fall 1978, Kansas State University. Now, Calvin was a great guy. He was a good guy. He was African-American architect. He was a Kappa Alpha something. He's in the fraternities. I joined the service fraternity. But this story says a lot about Calvin. It says a lot about Kansas. It says a lot about what I was thinking as a 19-year-old. I was 19 at the time. And it informs where I am today all the way up to doing this video and reading that title to you. In order to see the rest of the story, you have to get the book. But let me tell you what I did with my books. Not only did I write the books, but then I started producing action audio theater. And so I would do readings for portions of the book, and I'd add sound effects and music and so on. So here's a sample of one of the segments from the writing storm that I did for, again, moving my heroes along. Because my heroes are not just superheroes like Superman, but Michael Eric Dyson. One of the stories in the writing storm is why I want to be a Michael Eric Dyson roadie groupie. And here is a sample of action audio theater, and these productions you'll only find at my radio station, which broadcasts 24/7 worldwide. And I have a lot of listeners in Tanzania. So, broadcast worldwide. So, here's, give it a listen. I watched Hard Day's Night with the Beatles a few days earlier and realized that what I had to do. I was afraid at first, but after I stopped thinking about it, fear morphed into courage. All the chairs were full at the reading. As usual, Portland people sat respectfully and listened, showing no emotion or commitment to his words. Dr. Dyson read a first passage from his new book, Tears We Cannot Stop, then segued into one of his tantric, intellectual improvisational soliloquies. As he got going, I jumped up on the nearby table, lit a candle, and while waving it and swaying from side to side, yelled, "Dr. Dyson, you rock! Woohoo!" Then, even though everyone was seated and the aisle was clear, I jumped down and... So, anyway, one of the things I want to do is, again, expand the medium. So if you write something, if you write a story, then there's all this technology out there available for you to, sort of expand what you've created, expand the medium, and then get it out there. And sort of, if you see this and you hear this and you have a story that you want to produce or you want to be featured on our radio station, just text me, email, whatever. I'm pretty easy to get to. And or create the station yourself. Produce it, create a blog, put it out there. Now, there's a whole marketing component that I'll talk a little bit about in one of my other episodes, because that is a huge part of the equation. It's, marketing is incredibly complex and incredibly hard. And then, the return on your investment. What is the return on your investment? Emotional, intellectual, financial. I hate to say it, but in a lot of cases, the emotional in return probably has to be sort of number one. The intellectual return, number two, probably maybe on the same plane. Number three, the financial, but that's nothing new. Financial investment, for artistic endeavors, a lot of times it's been way down there on the scale, and so, but yet we have evolved a society that believes the financial investments should be number one. It can be, but that means you have to advance a whole nother level of knowledge that you have acquired in order to move it there. And so, again, I believe, mastered many of those skills. I'm at a position where I can share that knowledge, and so again, I'm happy to share it with whoever I can, and I do. I actually do. And again, that's why I was for a year on the board of the Pacific Northwest Writers Association. Again, there's many things I've done like that. So I've gone way over, but that's how easy it is. That's how fast it goes. And that's how fascinating this is. And I'm probably going to do this whole episode. I'm going to publish this whole episode before my little driving monologue video log thing. So anyway, Raymond Quinton, Party Like a Writer, Half-World Tour. I'm going to sort of, segue you into this next, in this next video log. Again, I've got you all pumped up and excited, but this video log it's kind of sad, but exciting and inspiring at the same time, because as I drive through Wyoming, there's so much to see and so much to experience, and it's kind of overwhelming. And then, there's this melancholy and there's this sadness about being a black person in America. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. I'll see you at the end of this one's going to be an hour. I'm sorry. I promised 30 minutes. It's going to be an hour. Maybe 45 minutes. So anyway, see you next episode. All right, I'm going to do another video log because something did occur to me, and a lot of things occur to me while I'm driving. That's why I love driving so much. And for those of you who don't know, I am a professional bus driver, a professional truck driver, and so there's a cop there. So, I do a lot of driving. I drive for a living right now. Currently drive for the college, 300 to 400 miles a week on average. But so let's say as we're traveling, and while I travel alone, I get to think about a lot of things. And usually I don't record anything, I don't write anything down. That becomes sort of my personal sort of observations and, sort of intellectual musings. But this time around, we get to experience it, on an audio-video level. So this last entry, I said, it's a beautiful country. And I think, anybody who watches this, a lot of people who watch this would agree that the landscape and the places in America, there are some beautiful places. There are a lot of spectacular views. And as you travel around America, you'll see all of these amazing places. Now, what I will say from my personal perspective is that there's always a tinge of sadness that's always associated with it. And I think there's that sadness that a lot of black and brown and indigenous people experience when they travel throughout America. Because we cannot avoid sort of the historical reality that, we own as far as ownership is concerned, we own very little of this country. Now, a lot of people are incredibly patriotic, right? They will look around and look at America and look at all of this and say, I love America. We are a great nation because we collectively own all of this. We collectively claim all of this. And, there's a bit of religion involved in that. There's a little, patriotism is like a religion. Yeah, I think you can equate it. It is a religion. Let's just call it what it is. It's almost like a cult indulgence, a cult like association, because you really do have to ignore the historical realities and the current realities of America in order to. I'm going to flip this around here. And we're going to focus on me for a minute. Okay, and all right, there I am. Blackjack Kerouac. Okay. I keep hitting the zoom button. All right, zoom out. Okay, we got to keep it at about 75, and I do have the sophisticated Garmin that sort of tags my speed limit and then dings me if I go beyond the speed limit so I don't get a ticket. Okay, so let's go back to that subject for a minute, because as I drive around, I can appreciate the vastness, the hugeness, the majesty, and the beauty of it, but there's always that deep sadness. This is all owned by somebody, right? It was all claimed by somebody, and historically, the first people that got here claimed it and took it away from somebody else, and then even the people that claimed it, if they didn't have sufficient evidence of their claim, or they didn't have support, didn't have the means, then marauders and bandits came and claimed their claims. They took their shit away from them. It was just a all-out catastrophe for the Native Americans, for the people that came out. It was a freaking free-for-all. So when everything kind of shaked out, there were a bunch of people that owned a lot of stuff, and there are still a lot of people, and some of those same people that own a lot of stuff. So as a driver, I drive lots of things. So I did summer times I'll find different things to do just to keep myself busy while the college is closed. So I would drive what's called Big Pink downtown Portland. A lot of people know about that, and it's this modified trolley bus. And we give tours to people visiting from all over town. So I was being trained by a white woman. She had her own custom tours. Okay? And again, when I go visit places, I love hearing the tours, and I love hearing them, the local perspective. But I always appreciate it when people include sort of historically the native peoples. They go a little deeper and then also expose some of the bad stuff that's happened. That it's not so classist and obviously, culturally biased. And her tour was so culturally biased, and it's just, and then, the Willamette trolley. I'm a motorman too, so I drove that. And same deal. So the operators who did that tour made up their own shit. And usually their shit was so biased and so Anglo-centric and borderline racist. So let's go back to the tour that the woman, Big Pink, she would point out during her tour the statue of Sacagawea, and I always cringe when we got to the statue, just not really sure what she would say, but she never really said much about Sacagawea. Okay, that was fine, that was perfect. So anyway, when you go on tours, you think about that, there's a whole layer of stories there. Okay, if I do a tour, then again, I would definitely add some cultural elements, talking about some of the bad stuff and some of the good stuff. But anyway, this was her tour. It was very fast. There's Sacagawea. She was with Lewis and
she kind of talked like this. She was with Lewis and Clark. They were an excursion. And she had that weird little, sort of, that sort of attitude to her voice. Like, this is, yes. Okay, then another part of her tour was she would point out, and my family, we have about 40,000 acres in Clackamas. I love Clackamas. If you're thinking about getting a house in Portland, just think about the taxes. And then the final one that she would do, among others, let's make sure, but was she would go by downtown. Of course, everybody thinks, Portland is burned down and it's disappeared. She would go by the downtown park where a lot of the rights by the FBI building, the federal building, and she would point to it and say, and that's where the riots were. And I would again cringe. These are people from, all over the world. Now, what you'll see a lot of times nowadays, these tours are very multicultural. These are people from all over the world. And they're wanting, and they're hungry for history, and they're hungry for information. And so this tour kind of drove me crazy, and I couldn't wait to do it on my own, because then I would change it. And so when I did the Willamette Trolley, I changed the tour. And when one of the operators, who was from Amsterdam, he was Dutch, did this really racist, offensive section about an Indian princess who married an elk. It was at Elk Rock. I told him flat out, I'm not doing that tour. I am not doing that tour, and I'm not talking about that. I'm not saying that. If I were Native American and I were on this tour, I would be totally offended by it. And he was like, well, whatever. With this little Dutch, this is Dutch accent, So I researched it, and I couldn't find anything on this stupid story. I think people just made it up. White people made it up and said, oh yeah, that's folklore, without any kind of sort of academic consultation or anything like that. All right, so anyway, I'm meandering here, but again, the point there being, sort of with what's going on culturally in America, in Florida, with what people are teaching, with the drive to erase or whitewash history is nothing new. And I urge everyone to go out and look up the term whitewashing. It is nothing new. It is a thing, and it was a thing by a lot of countries, especially in Europe, after World War II, even World War I, when people from the colonies, black people, Latinos, Hispanic people, were brought in to help, and especially London, England, Jamaicans, my family, they opened the doors, come on in, help us build our shit because we fucked it up. And then they looked around and said, oh my goodness, there's too many black people here. So they literally changed the laws and then erased the history, of people of color in the books. And it's the same thing that happened to the Moors in Spain. So anyway, I urge people to just kind of do a little research. What's happening in Florida is not a new thing. It's always been a thing. And for black people to be included in the history books on a level, a reasonable level, is a minor miracle. And even what's there now is inaccurate and inadequate. All right, so anyway, going back to, again, meandering sort of back to my point as I drive around across the countryside, and I'm going to see a lot of countryside on this tour, 3,000 miles. I can look around and I can say, wow, what a magnificent, mountainscapes and landscapes and then a lot of shitty little towns, of course, which I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I can say, wow, isn't that beautiful? However, I am one of those people that sadness always creeps in. And I have to acknowledge the ancestors and the Native Americans and the history. And a part of me says, wow, this is great. Part of me says, you motherfuckers. Part of me says, I'm a bit privileged to be able to get in my piece of crap van, as I have my summers off and drive 3,000 miles and see things and visit family, and I have the means and the wherewithal to do it. But the majority, I believe, of Americans are not able to do that financially, intellectually, and for people of color, it's depressing. Because as a truck driver, I drove all over the Northwest, and when I saw this magnificent landscapes and all the stuff that people had, and then it was even during the time where there were the riots and all the protests. It was like I was a truck driver, I think, during the January 6th thing. So all the MAGA people in their big trucks are driving around down in Eugene and just making a bunch of fucking noise and again, protesting what? Because as far as what I could see, people own a lot of shit. And maybe the protest is that somebody out there owns all this stuff, and now they're squeezing me. Now they're, and if I have a little bit of something, now they're coming after what I have. And so, I have to blame, I have to find a scapegoat. Once again, find a scapegoat. So, it is nothing new that, black people have, always been scapegoats for centuries around the world. And then I'm going to end on, something directly related to that. It used to be, white people can tell jokes, about Polish people, about women, really offensive, obnoxious, about Jews, about, blacks. I mean, they use the N-word quite liberally. And, I've been in the same room where, people have told those jokes and thought it was quite acceptable. And now it's not acceptable, but they still want to tell their little jokes. They want to tell an offensive joke, and they want to find somebody, they want to find a target. So now it's, LGBTQ, and unfortunately, it's, Jamaicans. Because most white people figure that they're never going to be in the same room with a Jamaican, but a Jamaican is not the same as a black person. So they go, yeah, Jamaicans don't have emotions, they don't have feelings. They're just, yeah, man, ganja, things of that nature. The stereotypes prevail. So I work for multiple companies right now, and that kind of shit is not supposed to. You're not supposed to see that kind of shit at work, right? And people know you can't. As I said, you can't tell Polish jokes, you can't tell Jewish jokes, you can't tell. So I walk into, swipe my card. There's two white bus drivers, older white bus drivers, and out of my left ear, I hear the guy tell the other bus driver, "Hey, did you hear about the Jamaican proctologist?" And I went, oh, hell no, to myself. Oh, I'm only in there for it takes 2 minutes to walk in, get your paperwork, swipe your card. I'm going, oh, hell no, I am not hearing this at work. And so he told the joke. I mean, it's kind of a funny joke, but I went, you gotta be kidding. I said, my family is Jamaican, and that's not acceptable. He's like, whoa. So I went and told the supervisor, and again, a few weeks later, that guy hit a bunch of other buses and got fired. But anyway, maybe he got what he deserved. Maybe karma, karma's a bitch, man. Maybe karma, came down and scooped him up. and I'm gonna fuck you up. But the point being, as you travel around and as you see people and as you explore this country, what is the point? What's great about it? What's interesting? What's, and it's different depending on, the color of your skin. And I think, again, that is, it gives us something to think about. It gives us something to talk about. It gives us something to process. As I mentioned, I think, as a Jamaican American, first generation American, I talk about black privilege sometimes, and it has nothing to do with I'm better than you, or I own this, I own you, this is all my shit. It has to do with, those black people who have elevated their consciousness to a point where they're nuts. They're kind of impervious to the beatdown, to the racist, intellectual, beatdown that goes on every day. We can get up in the morning, we can go out, we can drive around, we can appreciate it. But I tell you, I was just back in Laramie. Evanston. I see all that when I go to these little towns. Again, I'm always a little nervous, always a little apprehensive. That little town has been beat down economically. Most of the hotels were being renovated. We're kind of sad. And I could just drive through the city and tell that there's some weird stuff going on there. And, I found a hotel. It was pretty nice. The Best Western was pretty nice, but a lot of the ones I drove by were pretty sketchy. Not a big city. It is a small town, but it is kind of a typical town. And a lot of people talk about Americana and America and slice of life stuff, and a lot of times, again, there's differing perspectives, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. I go to a small town, I'm on guard, and sometimes a little nervous because the people look at you a little strange, and people look so, I don't know, the way Americans dress is kind of weird to me. It's like, I'm going to dress this way because, this is our way. Again, it's that American cult. Wear my John Deere hat, wear my plaid shirts, my blue jeans, my buckle. I don't even think it's necessarily because they're proud of that or it's comfortable, because it's part of that. It's a part of the American cult. Because I think you should change your wardrobe like every 6 months. Like you should wear colors. You should have fun with your hair. I think you should. So again, look at me. All right. So I walk into a little town in Kansas. I'm going to walk into a lot of them, and people automatically look at me and go, "He's not from here. He's probably not American. Not one of us." Right. So the American cult is alive and well. Not everybody. There are a lot of good people, but I also know, and again, I'm going to leave this as food for thought, that small town America does treat black and brown people differently. So when people talk about, everybody's so welcoming and loving, help my neighbor, it all depends. So it's conditional for people of color. It's not unconditional. And, the goodness does come out in times of need. But, sometimes goodness comes out the same way you have to pull teeth. It'll come out, but it's like, should it come out for you because you're not one of us? I don't know. Okay, goodness is coming out. I'm going to do something good. So anyway, just something to think about as we do these travel logs. And once again, I'm on a stretch of highway going through Wyoming. which I always think is kind of pretty. I like the stretch. But I'm not going through Kansas. There's nothing pretty about going through western Kansas. Now let's see how Nebraska is, because I've never gone that way before. All right, so I gotta log out and kick it back up to 80 miles an hour. That's the good news. Go 80 miles an hour, but you gotta pay attention. All right, over and out, and be long. August 7th.
I am
on the
free
road
to use my words
Lincoln,
in
Nebraska.
a safe,
Over and out.
respective, nonviolent way. I go out and find other word nerds and tell the gods what they can do with life's turds. Today, like every day, is a great day to be a writer. Today, like every day, is a great day to right some wrongs, to write a simple song, to write of 12-inch fables in maybe a pornographic blog, or maybe write recipes for dogs, or write my manifesto about environmental equity on the moon, or write about my life as a hired gangster goon, or write a poem about my addiction to the bottle, or write a book on Quetzalcoatl. Today, like every day, is a great day to be a
Day of the first year, 2024. That is what I'm talking about. San Francisco. It's a perfectly clear night. And Claudia's here. And we tripped over this little restaurant in the Embarcadero, way far away from the madding crowd. And I met Carlos, owner. I met Carlos' father from Italy. Art is your hair. And you did all this? Mm-hmm. Art says... Mom did this for you. Mom did the background. You did the... What do you call it? The arts. As far as class. Oh, yeah, art.